Hello, everyone. So, apparently, the White House had a meeting with Russian ambassadors, and the U.S. media wasn't invited. Now, this is funny for two reasons. One is I don't watch cable news, mainstream news, but I was standing at the gas pump putting gas in the car, and I saw one of these talking heads on the TV attached to the gas pump complaining about how the media didn't know that the White House was having a meeting with the Russians. But I distinctly recall 2 or 3 days ago, as Comey was getting fired, that a bunch of people on the left were complaining that that he had such big balls to fire Comey right before going to meet with the Russians. Now, again, I don't watch cable TV at all, so I don't know if the CNNs and the MSNBCs were, autistically screeching about this, or if it was just more stuff on the internet. But I know for a fact that people knew this was going to happen. So to see this talking head on the TV complaining about, oh my God, the media wasn't invited, and we didn't find out until the Russian diplomats tweeted it out. Total bullshit, total lies. And to those people on the left who don't like Donald Trump, that's great. Don't like him. You don't have to like him, but you need to wake up to the bullshit that the mainstream media, the cable news networks, the mockingbird media is trying to feed you, because it's not based in fact. They're so hell-bent on trying to just spin everything from the perspective of their hatred for Donald Trump that they don't even give a damn about the facts anymore. And, spinning it is one thing. That doesn't matter to me. Go ahead and turn every news article into some kind of spin about how you think Donald Trump is the Dorito Hitler. That's great. But do it from a platform of honesty and truthfulness rather than throwing the facts to the wind and not even giving a damn. So to the people on the left, go look up examples of these talking head pundits pretending to be in a war zone when they're not, pretending to be two people talking to each other thousands of miles apart when other footage clearly shows them in the same parking lot, not 50 feet apart. Go look up examples of the mainstream pundits who have guests on the air or who themselves begin to say something that doesn't fit the narrative, and oh my gosh, suddenly we have technical difficulties and we've got to cut the feed. The hypocrisy of these organizations is absolutely astounding. They pretend to be these arbiters of truth and this bastion of honesty and factual information, and yet there are very clear examples that are just increasing in frequency of how dishonest they really are, and how they will even lie in order to spin their narrative from their perspective of this dislike for Donald Trump. Now, again, I don't care if every single cable network, every single newspaper, every single article is spun as a negative, opinion about Trump if the facts are correct. But you have to get the facts right in order to have that privilege for people to even give a damn about what you're saying. So to have this talking head, to be standing there and hear this talking head complain about, oh my God, we didn't find out about it until, Moscow tweeted it out. It's bullshit. People were talking about it 2 or 3 days ago. And, another great example is this whole thing with the healthcare bill. I haven't read the whole thing, but I did read the important parts, and it's in plain fucking English. It's not in legalese. It's really easy to understand. It says very clearly that victims of rape or incest can get federal dollars for an abortion. A woman who has severe health complications from a pregnancy and it puts her at severe risk, she can get federal dollars for an abortion. Women are not going to be charged more even though statistically speaking they cost the insurance companies more, they're not going to be charged a higher rate than men. So these are all things that this lying mainstream mockingbird media is trying to spin the other way, and they're not even trying to bring in the facts. And again, it might be a little different if this stuff was total legalese and you couldn't understand it and you had to get a lawyer to explain it to you. But like I said, I've read the important parts. I've read those 3 features, and it's really plain English, right? It says in about 2 sentences that victims of incest and rape can get federal funding for an abortion. It says in about 2 paragraphs that women aren't going to be charged more. It's against the law for an insurance company to charge women more than men for the same insurance policy. And so they bring on these guests and they try to pretend like, oh my God, it's an attack on women and people are going to die, and fucking Bernie Sanders is going ape shit over, they're going to fucking kill kids. Oh! It's total non-factual bullshit. People, go read it for yourselves. It's easy to understand. You don't have to read the whole document to get to the meat of what you're concerned about. And there's plenty of resources that can guide you to the right section, so you don't have to try to fish through the whole thing. There's people out there who have read the whole thing and have it outlined pretty well, so that you can just skip right to the meat of what you are concerned about and what you want to know, whether or not healthcare is going to change in this way or that way. I just can't believe that these organizations are going to continue to exist much longer if they can't present their opinion from a platform of honesty and truthfulness. Now, I understand you should never interrupt your opponent when they're making a mistake, but seriously, to the mockingbird media, if you want to exist in another 10 years, you're going to have to not lie. There are approximately 65 million people in this country who are actively creating internet content, which is essentially solely focused on calling out and demonstrating the lies of the left and the leftist media. And in a lot of cases, media on the right too. It's not necessarily a partisan thing. It just happens to be that the leftist media is especially dishonest right now. Kind of the way all the leftists were calling out the media when Bush was trying to invade Iraq and, wanted to play cowboy and water the desert with blood. They did a really good job of pointing out how deceitful and how lying media organizations like CNN and Fox News were at that time. But now, ever since we had the Democratic Messiah Obama, there can be no wrong done by CNN. MSNBC and CNN are just total bastions of the pure truth. They're arbiters of fact, and they can do no wrong. And it's total hypocrisy, and it's hilarious to see these people flush their entire following down the toilet that way. They're not going to continue to exist at this rate because only super diehard partisans that don't care about facts, that only care about red or blue and left and right, are going to continue to consume that kind of information. Only people who really want to be in an echo chamber and aren't interested in what's actually going on, they just sort of want to hear what makes them feel good. Those are the only people who are going to continue to consume this material that's being put out. And it's not so obvious right now because you have a lot of the older crowd on the left who are still really loyal to groups like MSNBC and CNN. I know this because my in-laws are sort of in that group, and I love to shock them by pointing out some of these other great internet content creators who have compiled excellent pieces of work that demonstrate how they lie and catch them up in their lying and catch them up in their dishonesty and trying to deceive people. And, it's great to see the shock on their face. And they're wonderful people. I love them. We get along. Our ideology, honestly, isn't all that far apart, just sort of in terms of, some things, especially the media right now, they still believe that something like, some organization like CNN can do no wrong, because for a long time CNN really was something like, one of the better places to get information. They actually put people on the ground in conflicts, and they actually sent reporters to breaking news and important events and that kind of stuff, and they delivered information that wasn't so biased. But it's not true now. And the reason it's affecting the older crowd somewhat is because they're stuck in their routines, and so they don't use the internet the same way that the younger crowd does, and so they don't come across all of this great evidence that's being put together that shows just how dishonest these groups are. And again, it's not about the opinion of these groups. It's not that like, they're so terrible, they're going to fail just because they don't like Donald Trump. No, they're going to fail because they're trying to mind fuck the American citizen. And so the average voter who's 50 years old or younger and who's approaching voting age from the other end of the age spectrum, they don't want to be mind fucked. Even if they hate Donald Trump, they don't want to be manipulated mentally with propaganda. At least 90% of them don't. And so as that continues to be the modus operandi, they're going to get disgusted with this, and they'll just turn to honest, more left-leaning internet producers of news and that informational content. So it's really absolutely hilarious to see them flush almost 60 years worth of hard work down the toilet, probably longer. I don't know a whole lot about the history of, something like MSNBC or CNN or Fox News or whatever. And that's the thing. I don't care if it's a left news organization or a so-called right news. Let them all go. I totally feel that, bankrupt the New York Times, bankrupt CNN, bankrupt NBC, bankrupt Fox, bankrupt MSNBC, bankrupt ABC. Let them all go down the drain, because we don't need them. There's high quality content creators on the internet on both sides of the political spectrum that straddle the political spectrum, that produce content that appeals to both people on the left and the right, people in the center. And the reason that it's such good content is because it comes from a platform of honesty. These people don't have to pretend. They just put out what's true, and it's good content for that reason. So a little bit of food for thought. Go do your research. Go just look up a little bit about this meeting that the White House had with the Russian ambassadors, and go back 2 or 3 days and look in the newspaper or look up some YouTube videos of what all these talking heads were saying, oh my gosh, President Trump's got so big balls that he's going to fire Comey and then go right away and meet with the Russians. And then 3 days later, they're going to turn around and be like, oh my gosh, we didn't even know about this. Do they really think people are that fucking stupid? Do they really think that we're all a bunch of mosquitoes that don't even have 3 days worth of attention span and memory? I don't know. Maybe they do. Thanks for listening, everyone. Good luck. Stay safe.